What's better than one show in a day? It's two shows in a day. Got my guy Sunil with me back at it again. We're going to talk about the 49ers versus the Lions, Brock Purdy's playoff resume, and then looking forward to the matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of a Super Bowl that was just 4 short years ago. We're going to do all of that plus more next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second, and it's Tuesday night, which means I got my guy, So Real, Sunil in the building. What's up, Sunil?
Jesse, we are finally here. All off season, all through the regular season. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about it, and it has finally came upon us. Pause. We are in the Super Bowl, my friend. We are there. You got to witness it live. Oh my God. Can't wait to hear that experience. But yeah, man. Still living on cloud 9 right now.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And you are ready to blast off for this show with that NASA sweatshirt. So that's when you know he means business. That's when you know he means business. All right, let's talk about the 49ers and Lions game. Because I think there's two ways you can look at this. Either the 49ers went and took victory away from the Detroit Lions, or the Detroit Lions had it in hand and they lost the game. So, Sunil, I'm going to ask you, did the 49ers win this game or did the Lions lose this game?
You know, those binaries, right? Put us in a box because it can be a little bit of both, right? But
you could say it.
The answer, I believe, Jesse, is it's a little bit of both, right? Because if the Lions give you opportunities, it's up to the 49ers to take advantage of those opportunities. But if I have to choose one, I have to say the Lions lost this game because ultimately they were in a position to take charge of this game, to win the game. You know, anytime you're in the lead 24-7 going into the second half, and then the team, you know, the 49ers come out, only score a field goal. So you're still up, 24-10. You drove to be able to put yourself in a position to get those points back. And you decide to go for it. And ultimately that, those aggressive moves, which is interesting. I don't know if we're going to get into it because we kind of mentioned last week talking about we're going to see the stark contrast between Mr. Conservative and Kyle Shanahan and Mr. Aggressive and Dan Campbell. And we saw how that turned out. So all of those people that were going at me about Kyle Shanahan and his conservatism, well, we see how that played out. And because of that, it led to him being victorious. But ultimately, I got to say, the Lions had this game in hand. 49ers didn't come out on either side of the ball doing the things that they needed to do. And, all phases of the game, offense, defense, and special team were not playing as well as the Lions were. And ultimately, coaching decisions, player mistakes, and lack of execution on the Lions side gave the 49ers the opportunities. And, like the championship medal that they had, they took full advantage of it and ended up coming out with the victory. So 49ers deserve all the credit for that, but they could have played the best second half in the world. And if the Lions just did the smart things, the Lions would have had the game won because of how much of a discrepancy there was in that first half.
Well, you're right. We did talk about it last week, and I remember we both agreed that we would prefer the conservative coaching approach for our team. Now, I said it's more fun if you're not a fan of the game and you're watching the other guy go crazy. That's more fun to watch. But what do you prefer as your style of coach? We actually both agreed that Kyle Shanahan's approach is one that we would take. And I don't think it's hindsight to talk about those field goals because I remember, and I'm sure you were the same, and a lot of people in this chat were the same, was like, I don't think I would go for it here on this fourth down. Before the Reynolds drop on that first one, the 49ers had just scored coming out of half. They were still down 14. If the Detroit Lions kick the field goal and make it, they go back up 3 scores, which is exactly where you started out of the half. But now you've got all the time wasted in between that, which puts them in a much better situation. And one thing I can tell you from being there, the crowd was not at all in the game after that field goal make from the 49ers. We were hoping for a touchdown. And when they got a field goal, as soon as the Lions got the ball and started doing exactly what they did in the first half, which was marching right down the field with no resistance, the crowd was like on pins and needles, waiting for something good to happen. And the Lions gifted that something good to happen. And as soon as that happened, the crowd got into it. You could see it was like the 49ers just flipped a switch and everything was good again. So I agree with you. I actually think the Lions did lose this. And there's 3 decisions I look at. The 2 fourth down attempts, which I think were both awful. And really, even the very end, they had a better chance to get into it. And I looked right at David on third down when they ran the ball and ended up having to burn a timeout. And I said, if they're going for it on fourth down, you can run the ball on fourth down because no time constraints happen. You either score or you don't. You cannot run the ball here. And sure enough, they ran the ball, didn't get in, had to burn a timeout. That put them in a situation where they had to onside kick versus being able to kick off, get the 49ers to potentially go 3 and out, and then get the ball back with a chance to go win the game. So those 3 decisions, I think, kept them out of probably winning this game. Now, the 49ers had to do a whole hell of a lot to win the game. It's not like all of a sudden they win because of those 3 decisions. They had to go score. So you're right. It is probably both. But if I had to give it towards one, I would say the Lions lost it, man. They had that game in their grasp and they absolutely blew it with that decision making. And Dan Campbell, for as risky as he's been and how great it's worked out all season, in this scenario, all 3 of them were awful decisions. All 3 of them.
And what makes it more, disconcerting, because there's a lot of people in the national media that are just like, well, this is who Dan Campbell is. And, they've won multiple games because of his aggressiveness. So, you live and die, by the sword. But that first half, Jesse, there was a chance where they were 4th and goal and they were contemplating whether or not to go for it, it was like near the end of the second half, and they ended up kicking the field goal, right? To me, if you're going to play aggressive and you want to just blow the team out, that's the chance that you take, right? You take it there because you're still up, by 2 scores at that point. If you go for it and you don't get it, I don't think there was that much time left on the clock. Even if there was, you're driving, 90 plus yards to be able to get a score on an offense that hasn't really been able to move the ball on you much. But he didn't. He understood that points mattered, and let me take these points. And then all of a sudden in the second half, those same points weren't good enough. You needed touchdowns instead of field goals. It didn't make sense. Like, he contradicted himself within the game plan. And I think that goes back to, being the first time coach in the playoffs. Like, those are the things that I think when people, and I'm taking this back to Shanahan, I'm defending my guy, but like when he explained why he ended up playing the end of that quarter the way that he did, he was talking about how his experiences in the playoffs had led him to understand that even though maybe my emotions would want me to do something different, this is the right way to play it because it minimizes risk. And a lot of people don't like that, right? Mentality. You maximize, you go for the touch, well, that's what Dan Campbell does. And we got to see for full, like, going for it, going for the kill, going for the jugular. You play to win the game. Well, playing to win the game in those moments led the 49ers to be able to come back. And because of those decisions, along with the 49ers execution, the Lions aren't in the Super Bowl right now, and the 49ers are. So thank you for Dan Campbell for doing what a lot of these 49er fans wanted Shanahan to do. But ultimately, there's a reason why Shanahan and his team are in the Super Bowl and Dan Campbell isn't.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was incredible experience, great outcome. And regardless of whether the 49ers won it, the Lions lost it, it's irrelevant because the 49ers are in the Super Bowl and the Lions are not. So I am not mad no matter what. Poop Saggets says, is Ayuk's tremendous play to be called the catch four? No, I was actually talking about this because if it had been later in the game, like final drive, it would have been. But because it was so early, I think that was to put them, they were still down 7. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that put them to be within 7. Too early in the game to be the catch four, but it was a tremendous catch. I will say that. It was definitely a tremendous catch.
And it's interesting because a lot of people are going at Purdy because they're saying he overthrew it and it should have been an interception. But if you actually look at the play, Ayuk got bumped on the way there, which kind of slowed down where he was going. And the ball was already in the air at that point. So that's why they threw the flag for potential pass interference, but they picked it up because, you know, the corner on that was looking at the ball the whole time. So it wasn't a pass interference, but it was that bump that made that ball overthrown. Thankfully, you know, Ayuk still went for it. So it made it a very difficult catch for the corner. And, you know, he ended up obviously going off the face mask and Ayuk and his ability to have insane body control, insane focus. And look, this is the second time he's made some clutch catches. Like I think we are overlooking, a lot of people are overlooking how important that catch against Green Bay, where he basically picked it up off the ground and just caught it with his hands, that low ball that Brock Purdy threw. Like he's, you know, we're talking about Brock Purdy's resume later on. I've said some things about Ayuk that people have said, and there's no way it's going to happen, right? I've said that I think he's going to finish top 3 wide receiver in 49er folklore, 49er history, and I think he could actually finish above T.O. And a lot of people are going at me like, I don't know, man. He might not have all of these regular season touchdown numbers that T.O. has, but those are some clutch catches that are on the way to the Super Bowl. You gotta give the guy credit.
No, Ayuk's fantastic. Ryan says 2 guys, 1 show. That's pretty sketch. I like it. Jeremy Pryor, what's up, Jerry? I haven't seen you forever, man. I hope everything's good with you. He says, do you believe now, Jess? And you thought I was crazy for assuming Purdy would have over 30 touchdowns on the year. Stay faithful, baby. Faithful, we are here. Did I? I'm going to have to find that one because I predicted it 28. So 30 to 28 is like not this crazy stretch. But maybe I did. I don't know, man. If you say so, then I'll believe it because you're a good guy. Yaz Williams says, can we all agree we have be a franchise quarterback? I think you meant we just have a franchise quarterback. No. But he's playing very, very good. Too Much Sauce says, what 49ers D lineman needs to step up in the Super Bowl? Chase Young.
He's not old. He's young.
Yeah.
You cannot be in a 49ers jersey with the last name Young and not play lights out.
Incredible football.
Right. We got Steve Young. We got Brian Young. You got, if your last name is Young and you wearing a 49er jersey in the Super Bowl, you better ball out, Chase Young. Otherwise, you got to change your last name.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen yet, just a heads up, the 49ers are wearing white. The Chiefs will be wearing home red. So if you haven't seen it, that is the setup. Matthew Sanders says, if Kyle did what we would, we would correctly berate him. Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to situations. If you're trying to protect a lead and you're up by multiple scores, you extend that lead and go up by 3 scores instead of 2. If the game was, if that was a 7-point game right there, and let's say the 49ers came out and scored a touchdown, got a stop, and then kicked a field goal and got it to within 7, I actually could defend them going for it on 4th down and saying, hey, the 49ers are getting hot. We want to make this a 2-touchdown game again. I get that. But because they came out and only kicked the field goal, and then you were still up 2 scores, that's where the problem comes. It's not the decision to go for it. It's when in the game and what was happening around you is why it's such a big issue. I don't have a problem going for it, but it's picking and choosing your spots, and that was awful. 49er Jojo says, 2021, how was the Bucs D able to stop Mahomes? He had 4 starting offensive linemen out. That's how they were able to stop him. That's a pretty big deal, and that is not going to happen this week. So although it looks like Thuney will be out, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. All right, let's talk about some unsung heroes from this week's game. Give me an unsung hero or two from this last week's victory.
There's a guy that I think is not only an unsung hero for the game, but he's an unsung hero for the season, Jesse. And to me, that's Tayshaun Gibson. And obviously, he was the one who made the strip to get the fumble off of Jahmyr Gibbs. But he had some incredible coverage. He had some incredible coverage plays. He had some incredible tackles. And it seems like more times than not, Jesse, he's making a big play all throughout the season on the defense. And especially with Hufanga going down, we expected to see this big dip in play. And, you know, we gave a lot of that credit to Brown, which obviously he should get some credit. However, Gibson has been such a steady player there at safety. He's been able to stay healthy the whole year and been able to play at a high level the whole year. And to me, he's a huge reason why the 49ers won this game, but he's been a huge reason why the 49ers are in the position they've been in this whole season. So I know he came back for like just 1 year to basically get this far and win a chip. And he's probably going to sail off into the, into retirement, hopefully with the Super Bowl championship. But man, if they could coax him into 1 more year, I really would like to see him get 1 more year with this team. And while we know it's going to be pretty much the same roster, but yeah, to me, he's one of the biggest unsung heroes in the game.
Yeah, I love that. And since you went defense, I'll go offense. And actually, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm going offense because I had one player in mind anyways. But I'll act like I want to give contrast. I'm too honest, man. I'm too honest. All right. Kyle Juszczyk, man. Kyle freaking Juszczyk. He had and great plays by Purdy. First of all, the plays by Purdy to set these up were fantastic. The throw where he had him on kind of a deep dig, and then the one where he caught it on the sideline. Both phenomenal plays by Purdy to even get those balls off. But once they were off, Kyle Juszczyk for making big time catches in that game. And then not only that, he had multiple big blocks on Deebo Samuel plays that were crucial, and a really, really good one on a big CMC run. So for me, and also he helped Chip a lot on
Hutchinson.
Yeah, there we go. He helped out a lot on that right side to Chip on Hutchinson. So for those three reasons, I have to say Kyle Juszczyk showed up in a big, big way. And fullbacks don't get a lot of credit. They if he's not getting catches or he's not running the ball or what have you, you're not going to hear a lot from him. They kind of just do the dirty work, and he's always been that way. But man, he made some big time plays in this game, and they were very, very noticeable. So I got to give Kyle Juszczyk big credit.
And for somebody who doesn't get a lot of opportunity in the offensive game plan to make the type of catches that he made, there's that old adage, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. Ultimately, he's the definition of stay ready, because those catches he made, you would be understanding if a wide receiver doesn't make those plays that averages 5 to 10 targets a game. He's somebody who averages 0, and he's still making these catches every time he's called up. It's incredible to think about how good of a player he is. And he's primarily known for just being a blocking fullback, which is insane.
Yeah, he's incredible, man. He really can do everything. And we knew that, but when I was in training camp watching him run routes, he always got open. It didn't matter if it was a linebacker or a safety. He was always wide open on the one-on-one routes. He's just a really good football player. Samir says, just dropping by to say hi. Well, hello, Samir. And then Poop Saget says, do you think the Chiefs target Jawan after his contract? I don't know. I don't know who's going to target him. I could see that for sure happening.
Obviously,
a lot of teams can use a big bodied wide receiver that's good on third down and is a great blocker. So I would say the Chiefs could be one of those teams for sure. But there's a lot of teams that could use that. And he's not going to be overly expensive. So maybe the 49ers can keep him. I'm of the belief that they probably won't be able to, but I hope they can. I hope they can make it work. And if not, he's going to get a decent payday, but nothing too crazy. And I think a lot of teams would fight for his services. I really do. He's a fantastic player. I remember an interview with Fred Warner and Richard Sherman, not this last offseason, but the offseason before. And Fred Warner said, Jawan Jennings is the best football player on the team. And then he doubled down and said, the best football player on the team. I was like, really? I mean, there's a lot of really good players here. He meant it though, man. Everything that he brings to the table, he's legit. So he's kind of like the green law of the offense. So
for sure.
Jeremy says, apologies. I said 35. You said 30. I said 28, technically. You said 30. We weren't off. That BA catch was like Julian Edelman's low catch against ATL in the Super Bowl. Yes, it was. All is well, brother. We're going to the dance. I know, man. We're actually going to be there. And that was an incredible catch, too. Acrobatic catch. That was pretty similar, actually. Pretty similar to that catch. And we were there when we at the game. We didn't think he got touched. I watched the game after the fact and realized he was definitely touched. But at first we're like, why aren't you challenging that? He wasn't touched. But we didn't get to see the replay a whole bunch in the stadium. So fantastic catch. All right, let's talk about Brock Purdy's playoff resume that he's building, because he is doing some fantastic things. I put together a list. Do you want me to read the list of
Please.
the accomplishments he has, and then you can kind of give your thoughts? Okay. So 3 players have won the Super Bowl at 24 years and younger. So pretty good history here if he wins a Super Bowl. Big Ben, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. He would be the 4th player to do so at 24 years and younger. There are only 2 players that I could find. Now, maybe somebody else can find something, but only 2 quarterbacks that I found that have made a conference championship in their first 2 years in the league. Mark Sanchez, Ben Roethlisberger. There have been 9 quarterbacks that have played in the Super Bowl at 24 years or younger. 5 of them have been Hall of Fame caliber or are in the Hall of Fame. So pretty good company, I would say, to be in the situation that he is in. Those are the raw statistics or other players that have been there. What would you say about the playoff resume so far of Brock Purdy and what he's building at a young age?
I mean, you said the word. It's incredible. I mean, he already has more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, right? If he wins the Super Bowl, he'd be tied with your boy Josh Allen for how many playoff victories. It's and the way he's doing it this playoff run, Jesse, I think is what's great about it, is because it's like the universe or God, whatever we want to put it, is just like, Purdy, I'm going to give you the opportunity to silence all of these haters. They say you can't lead a game-winning drive. I'm going to give you the opportunity. Go out there and ball out and lead a game-winning drive to put your team into the next round. Then he heard all the media, or universe heard all the media, and was like, nah, it has to be more than 2 scores for it to count. It's not just, down by 4 points to be able to consist of a game winning. Okay, cool. So I'm going to put you down 24-7 at halftime, and you need to go ball out in the second half, bring your team back to get yourself in the Super Bowl. And it's just like all of the things that people are saying he can't do is he's doing. And then he's adding wrinkles that we knew he had, but he's able to showcase it on such a big stage, like the mobility, the ability to scramble. He's throwing incredible balls with nothing but pressure in his face, like taking big hits, throwing dots to Ayuk, to Debo.
A crosser on Debo, man, that was my favorite throw the whole game, man. Oh my gosh, he took a shot to the grill and just Right on the money.
No hesitation, no flinching. He's just doing it. Like, even, the throw, which some people are like, it's one of those, oh no, oh no, oh no, yes, plays what he did to, what he did across his body and floated it up
To Juwan.
to John Jennings. Yeah, like, it's just, these are things that unfortunately people who might be rooting for him to fail, or think they're not able to appreciate it because they're just not expecting it from him. And they're just like, nah, that can't be real. That's Juwan Jennings going up for the ball, or, whatever they want to put it on. But to me, ultimately, like, yeah, there's a lot of discussion about, franchise quarterback and not. And I think, where people maybe misconstrue you is, when you look at franchise quarterback, you're looking at somebody that's going to get paid $50-60 million, where you would rather have this quarterback than a Nick Bosa. You would rather have this quarterback than, a Debo or an Ayuk, because those franchise quarterbacks, you're looking at a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Because Patrick Mahomes is being paid what he's being paid, they have to lose a guy like Tyreek Hill. They have to, lose, certain guys that they can't pay. And that's where you're kind of like, I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be able to take this team to the Super Bowl if he doesn't have the talent around him. And he wouldn't have that talent if he's getting paid $50-60 million a year. So I think that is a fair stance. But he is the perfect quarterback for this system with this roster.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We haven't seen somebody be able to take advantage of the opportunities that a Kyle Shanahan system gives a quarterback at this high level. And it shows with the way that this team looks. And I think it's not surprising that Kyle Shanahan has had this horrendous record when it's playing from behind. And then all of a sudden, this quarterback is able to break that in the 2 playoff games this season. He's turning into a clutch quarterback, proving that he's a clutch quarterback, proving that he's a difference maker and not just a game manager. And the amount of love that he's receiving from the team, and it's just epic, man. It's gonna be a movie. It has to be a movie the way that it's turning out, and it couldn't happen to a greater guy, man. His interviews, the way that he gives praise to God, and it's just a humble kid. It's just hard not to root for him, and it's crazy how people are rooting against him. It's wild to me.
Yeah, bro. I gotta say, I'm like getting goosebumps thinking about it. But you're right, man. It couldn't happen to a better person. At least what he portrays. We don't know him personally. We don't know any of these guys personally. But what he portrays, it's like, how can you not get behind that? How can you not root for that? It's the best underdog story of all time. And I also want to say this. This is why you don't box score scout. This is why I get on people for box score scouting, because if I read you the numbers of Brock Purdy in these playoffs, they would sound so underwhelming to you. Okay. But when you actually put eyes on what he's doing, fantastic. And he's playing fantastic at a very, very high level when it matters most, picking and choosing his moments to play at an elite level. And that is extremely important. Statistically, doesn't look great. But what he's doing is absolutely phenomenal when you watch the game. And you're right. I mean, I just laid out the resume. You see exactly what it is. If he wins a Super Bowl, he'll be one of 4 quarterbacks to do that at the age of 24 and under. The other 3 are all, 2 of them are arguably the best 2 of all time. And one of them is probably top 10, a guy that I've said, and Ben Roethlisberger, I would take over Drew Brees. And I think most people have Drew Brees as a lock in their top 10. I think Ben Roethlisberger is also a top 10 quarterback. So you would put yourself in rarefied air. We'll see how the career goes, but it can't really start much better than that. And for that, you have to love what Brock Purdy's doing right now. And hopefully he can join those other 3 in winning a Super Bowl at a young age. Otherwise, he just kind of goes in the pantheon of guys that have been there. Some are good, some aren't. But if he wins, he puts himself in a whole different situation. And I I think they can win this game, man. I think with him at the quarterback, they can win this game. So definitely happy for Brock Purdy.
He's given us as a fan base the confidence that this team is never out of it, which we haven't had in previous years. So knowing that, yeah, even if the 49ers might be down going into the fourth quarter, might be down, at halftime, like we've seen it with our own eyes. Now, obviously, am I saying we should be going down to, possibly the greatest quarterback, like potentially could be go down as the greatest quarterback and, one of the greatest coaches of all time? No, I'm not saying that's the ideal recipe, but I think that there's always going to be faith, and that's all you can ask for is that, you have a quarterback that gives you a chance. I think he's proven that he gives us a chance.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this comment here. This guy's been in the chat. He was here this morning and he's here today or tonight, and I appreciate you. We'll see. We'll see how the Super Bowl goes, but I'm sure that you're going to be around for at least the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to kind of having some back and forths. But saying that Purdy threw 50-50 balls, and I'm going to say exactly what Ryan said earlier because I couldn't have said it better myself. Zero problems with him throwing 50-50 balls when you're in a situation to need big plays. Much like Dan Campbell, how I just laid out, there's a time to go for it on fourth down and a time not to go for it on fourth down. There's a time to throw 50-50 balls, and there's a time to not throw 50-50 balls. If the 49ers are protecting a lead, you don't want to be throwing those footballs. But if you're trying to come from a big deficit, you've got to take chances. Scared money don't make money. And for me, even if, like, let's say that one pass was picked off and they would have been inside their own 5 or what have you, I would have been okay with that instead of Ayuk catching it and making a fantastic play, because I know that he was trying to make a play to turn that game on its head. And I have zero issue with being aggressive, giving your best receiver a chance to go make a play. I have no issues with that whatsoever. So
I agree.
All right. Dazza says Chiefs' strength this year is the D. Pause. Wouldn't it make more sense to receive and try to get up early on the Chiefs rather than playing from behind? We probably agree on that. Kyle Shanahan is not going to take the football. So that we do know, but I don't necessarily disagree with that. Jeremy Price says, I feel like whoever's giving Purd slander is only doing it for the clicks and clout. 2 games in a row, the kid has came back and won games in that matter. Yeah, or won games that matter. Yeah, here's the thing, Jeremy. To me, talking about Purdy and talking about the 49ers quarterback situation, good or bad, gets clicks. Right? There are people that I've talked about in the past that have started their whole channels this year based off a film review on Brock Purdy and growing it and being overly positive about Brock, even when sometimes he hasn't necessarily deserved that positivity. So I think talking San Francisco quarterbacks right now, that's Brock Purdy. That's going to get you clicks. So good or bad, over the top praise or over the top scrutiny gets you clicks. So I think that can go both ways. Jeremy says the kid can ball, the kid can lead. The boy's good. I agree. Matthew Sanders says Kansas City has 2. Enough. Go take one from them. Yeah. I get you, man. I get you. I'm with it. Nees says, imagine being told a few years ago, Jimmy is benched, Trey's a 3rd-string quarterback, and Sam Darnold is a potential Super Bowl champion. Yeah, right. Interesting. Matthew Sanders says, also, Chiefs again, Kansas City receivers drop 100 balls. Yeah, they do, but not in the playoffs, man. They found a way to clutch up in the playoffs, and that's really what matters. Marquez Valdez-Scantling made a huge catch the other day. He's made a couple of huge catches in these playoffs,
each game
actually.
he's made one.
Yeah, so they're not dropping the ball now, which is the most important thing. All right, one thing I can say, Sunil, is, boy, this defense has been suspect to say the least. This last game, they couldn't stop anything this went into the 3rd quarter, by the way. We talked about the decision from Dan Campbell to forego the field goal attempt. Well, up to that field goal attempt, the Detroit Lions were doing exactly what they had done in the first half. They just got the ball and started marching it right down the field as if nothing happened. Now, obviously, we know from that point on, momentum got in the 49ers' favor. They turned it around. They did some awesome things. But do you feel like the defense has kind of gotten exposed or did get exposed in this last game?
Look, this last game, it was a little bit different to me, Jesse, because the 49ers on defense have been up and down. They've looked bad in Green Bay, right? They had looked bad at certain moments in that game as well. But the way they looked bad in this game was what was a little bit troublesome and scary, because in previous games, they would look bad because opposing offenses would take advantages of maybe our weak links. Like they would throw to Ambry Thomas, who wasn't having a bad game. They would, take advantage of, a replacement, a linebacker, or whatever the case may be, right? This was a case where they were going up against the people we want them to go up against, and guys were just missing tackles. Guys were getting pushed around, and the Lions were bullying the 49ers defense. And that's scary because the 49ers are usually the bullies, and they were getting pushed around. Fred Warner was missing tackles. Diamador Lenore, I saw some plays where, guys got the best of him, and it was just, we're not used to that. So when we're seeing our best players kind of getting beat, that's when you're like, uh-oh. And I don't know if our defense got exposed, but one thing I think is the case now is, and this was something that we used to talk about with Robert Saleh as well. Not so much with D'Amico, but Robert Saleh, and I think Wilkes has the same issue. They need halftime to make adjustments. They're unable to, or haven't shown the ability to consistently make the changes throughout the game. So it's like whatever's going on in the first half is going to stay going on in the first half till they get into the locker room, and then they can make some good adjustments. But in-game adjustments are not their forte, or it takes them time to process things. I don't know what it is, Jesse. I don't know enough about how game plans, schemes, and stuff change. But just from the breakdowns I'm seeing in the second half, he was doing some really, really great things as far as being able to show man-to-man and then actually being in zone and stuff like that he wasn't doing in the first half. And it seems like that's been the case in both of these games, where in the first half, they couldn't stop the momentum, but in the second half, they make adjustments that ultimately, lead to them winning the game. So I think that's something that has been exposed, is that maybe Wilkes isn't the best at in-game adjustments, but those halftime adjustments have luckily been enough for us to win a game. So I think maybe the game plans need to be better, especially against Kansas City, because we don't want to drop 24/7 to them and expect that they're going to make the same mistakes that Detroit made.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, the defense hasn't been good in the first half for 2 straight games. Now, they made some key stops against the Packers, but the Packers were moving the ball kind of at will in the first half as well. And then, the 4th down play and what have you, but they were moving the ball pretty easily in that first half. And then you get the Detroit Lions. I mean, golly, they did everything. They couldn't be stopped. And both those teams ran the ball very effectively. If anybody on 2 weeks' notice, and I agree, I don't think the defense was quote unquote exposed. To expose somebody means that everybody can take advantage of what's just happened. It's like when we watched Brock Purdy get exposed against Cleveland, and I said, well, that's great to say that he was exposed or against Baltimore, but you have to have a specific defense or defensive unit players to make things happen. Most teams in the league do not have that to put Purdy on his heels, and that's why he wasn't exposed. Same thing with this defense. Most teams don't have quarterbacks or coaches that can put you on your heels. Unfortunately, when I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they have both of those things, and they have it in abundance. So that is my worry. I don't think they were quote unquote exposed, but the things that went wrong in this game can be exposed by this particular team they're about to play in a Super Bowl. And that's where I get a little bit worried, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, these slow starts on the defensive side and the offensive side, to be honest, because you could put it all on the defense, but the offense hasn't been scoring as much in the first half either. Yeah, it needs to be fixed because absolutely, when you have a quarterback like Mahomes, he's going to be able to take advantage. He's going to be able to see the weaknesses in the defense, and he's going to be able to read whatever the defense is doing. You're not going to necessarily be able to trick Mahomes. You can just put him in bad situations, right? The defense. This is a game, Jesse, where the defensive line has to play like their price tag, like Hargrave, Armstead, Bosa, and we talked about it. You cannot have the last name Young in a 49ers jersey in the Super Bowl and not ball out. And we're going to need all of them to be able to get pressure on Mahomes, because even getting pressure on Mahomes doesn't necessarily mean he's not gonna have an amazing game. But I can guarantee you, not getting pressure on Mahomes, he's gonna dice us up. So you have to try to put him in situations where you can at least hopefully hope he makes a mistake, get some turnovers, and get a lead up against the Chiefs to give ourselves the best chance to win the game.
Yeah, most certainly. I have one super chat and then 3 comments that I starred that I really liked as well. So I'm going to go through those real quick. Dazza says, how confident are you in our inside O-line stopping Chris Jones? He destroyed us in 2019 Super Bowl. Not very. Not very at all. But I will say
Hicks is better than Tomlinson. And I think Feliciano, forgot who our right guard was in 2019, but it was Brunskill, wasn't it?
Yeah. Was it Brunskill? No. 20. Maybe it was. I don't know. Yeah. I'd have to go look at it. But either way, there's a lack of talent around him on the D-line right now because Nadi is injured and Aminu who's injured. Both those guys are going to miss this game. So that hurts big time. So I think because of that, Kyle Shanahan's done such a fantastic job of scheming around defensive lines with one really good player. So I think he actually can scheme around him. It's just a matter of if those other guys can make plays or not. If they can start making plays a little bit, then I'm not confident at all. But I am confident in Kyle's scheme to kind of get around it, not necessarily the players making the stops. So,
and I think CMC is much better at picking up the rush than Mostert and all of them were in the Super Bowl in 2019.
Yeah, so, I tend to agree with that. Yeah. Ahmad Z says, if we don't win the Super Bowl because Purdy doesn't play well, we can't extend him. I disagree. This is the beauty of Brock Purdy and his contract. They can't extend him after this season, even if they wanted to. So if they lose the Super Bowl and he doesn't play well, okay, it's more data points, but he has a whole nother year to do this again. Like, what if they do win the Super Bowl next year? Or what if he plays fantastic, plays as good or better than he did this year, balls out in the playoffs, and they lose next year in the playoffs, but it's not because of him, or they win a Super Bowl and he's a big part of that. So it's way too early to determine whether they can or they can't. That would be a data point. And if you had to make the decision at the end of this year, maybe you can make that argument, but they have a whole nother year. So for me, I think that it's kind of a moot point. The great JM says, Jesse, did you check on Rad after the Lions game? Yeah, I did, man. We talked for a good bit. He actually gave me some good insights on why he didn't have a problem with the second time that they went ahead and didn't go for 3, just because he didn't trust his kicker in that situation. But he definitely thought they should have gone for 3 in that first situation because of momentum and what have you and how much closer it was. But yeah, he was definitely gutted. Because think about it. If you get blown out, it's like, all right, we're just not the better team. But because they had the lead at halftime, you have to feel like we've got a great chance here. And it didn't go in their favor. So yeah, he was gutted. Terry Rogers says, Jesse, we must unite to clown Nick Wright if the 49ers win. I'm a huge Nick Wright fan. I actually like Nick Wright a lot. I love his YouTube podcast with his son more than I do watching him on TV because he's more authentic there. He'll cuss. He'll kind of be himself. And I also like it when he goes on Colin Cowherd's podcast, because it's just the two of them having a drink and just kind of talking like friends. But that being said, big but, I actually agree with you, Terry, because this is the worst case scenario for Nick Wright, which is Patrick Mahomes versus Brock Purdy. His guy, his team versus a guy he said would never or could never win a Super Bowl in Brock Purdy. So if Brock Purdy and the 49ers beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, he definitely deserves it. He definitely deserves the heat that he's going to get.
He's giving the 49ers zero chance. He's saying that the Super Bowl was them playing the Ravens, and anybody that would have come out of the NFC was going to be easy money for the Chiefs. So it'd be great for him. He got that tattoo at the beginning of the season, so I definitely want him to look at that and be like, dang, this is a waste of ink.
Yeah, for sure. So I thought that was pretty funny. All right, let's talk about this Chiefs matchup and some of the problems that it presents and some of the things that we think that the 49ers can exploit going into this one. So let's go back and forth. You give me, let's start with the bad and we'll end on the good. Give me a problem or a concern you have in facing the Chiefs. I'll do the same, and then I'll give the positive or something the 49ers can exploit, and then you can end on what you think the 49ers can exploit.
Sure. Well, I mean, if we're taking, obviously this is a rematch of 2019, and even though two very different teams, versions of these teams, one of the reasons why the Chiefs have been one of the biggest differences, this Chiefs team now is led by their defense instead of their offense. So they have the number 2 scoring defense in the league. In the playoffs, they've turned it up even more, right? They've been able to, make Josh Allen, make some bad plays at the end of games. They obviously made Lamar look not like Lamar, in his playoff game. So this defense is legit. This secondary, their corners are probably the best corners that the 49ers are going to face throughout these playoffs. And they're going to be a challenge. I mean, they don't give up a lot of points. They're stingy. There's not like a weakness where you could like crazy run on them or you could crazy pass on them. I would say probably their run defense is weaker than their pass defense because, like I said, those corners are, maybe people don't know them by name, but they should because they're all pro corners. They're
phenomenal.
They're just phenomenal, and they're young. So 49ers have their work cut out for them against this defense to be able to score on them because they're a solid unit.
Yeah, they are a very good unit and well coached. I mean, Spags is one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, and he draws up crazy game plans to stop very good players, very good offenses. And he does so on short notice a lot of the times. And he's almost always right. He does a fantastic job. And this is the best defensive unit as far as talent he has had since he's been with Kansas City. And man, that defense is very, very, very good. So that is a good concern. I would say another concern is, speaking of guys that game plan well, Andy Reid. Yep. You give him 2 weeks notice. He's been here many times before. He knows exactly what this moment takes to win. And he always has something up his sleeve, man. He always finds something to exploit good defenses or opposing defenses and almost never misses. So the one wrinkle he added last year against Philadelphia with that motion where he would send somebody in motion and then back, watching what their defense did and how they would just go to the other side, and to figure that out and use it and exploit it, won them that game. It was phenomenal. And then it makes it a lot easier to game plan when you have the world's best quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, a quarterback that's not going to be dictated how the game's going to go. He's going to dictate to our defense how it's going to go. And this is a defense that we've talked about who has given up big yards between the 20s. Now it comes down to, are they able to stop teams once they get there? With Detroit, the answer was no, at least for a big chunk of that game. And with the Packers, the answer was yes. That was a big difference in that game. What can the Chiefs do in the red zone? Because they're going to be able to move the ball with Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, that is a big concern. Now, I think something that the 49ers can exploit, or we should feel very good about, and this is where I think the Ravens went wrong, at least on the surface. Now, again, Spagnuolo is one of the best in the business. It easily could have been something that he did that forced the Ravens out of running the ball, because the Ravens run the ball more than anybody and have for many years. And now all of a sudden they get into this game and stop running. Was it something that Kansas City did? I got to assume that that might be the case, but maybe not. And either way, they were successful with it. They had to stick with it and decided not to. I think the 49ers, CMC, they will run the ball. They will do it with success. And one thing I do know is they're not going to stop running the ball. So the 49ers, that is something that I believe they can exploit. That's something that Kansas City has shown to be a weakness. And that was with Noddy in the lineup. Noddy is not in the lineup. I think that is something that the 49ers can exploit in this game. Give me something you feel confident in going into this Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a great point. I don't know about confidence, but maybe something that, we could exploit is this offense isn't as dynamic as it has been in previous years. They're still really good because they have Patrick Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league, and Travis Kelce, who, even though didn't have a great regular season, or, I mean, by his standards, is still nearly 1,000 yards and, multiple touchdowns. But his playoff performances have been great. He's coming off like a huge game. They obviously just broke the record, the Montana Rice record of touchdowns, and he has the most catches. He broke 2 Jerry Rice records. But there's not a Tyreek Hill on this offense. So we saw how Tyreek Hill really was the primary reason why the 49ers allowed the Chiefs to get back into it, because they had nobody that could really stop him. Rashee Rice is a good receiver, but he's still a rookie, and, he's still not necessarily a guy that scares you. MVS has made some big catches, but he's not necessarily a guy that scares you. Outside of Kelce, really, there's not somebody there's people who you are like, if you're gonna win, you have to get these guys to beat us. And I think that gives the Wilkes and scheming up for this defense to be like, somebody other than Kelce is gonna have to beat us for this team to win, which I think is a much better situation that we've had in previous Patrick Mahomes years, where it was like, okay, you could try to shut down Kelce. Well, we have Tyreek Hill over here who's going to be able to eat, and vice versa, right? So there's that. And another, you mentioned it right now. Kansas City isn't really good in the red zone. They're not finishing, drives and touchdowns as much as they have in previous years. And the 49ers are really good in the red zone as far as defense. They're pretty good. Not last game, but usually they're at that bend, not break. They're not allowing teams to score a lot in the red zone. So the defense, obviously you can't say it's going to be an easy job because it's still Mahomes, but it should be an easier job than it has been in like the 2019 year. So, and I think we have, even though the defense isn't as lights out, I think that we have better players,
better secondary for sure.
Better secondary, and on paper we have a better defensive line, you would say, even though they haven't been playing like it. But we have the potential of this defense to play a huge game, which can really, along with the Chiefs not having the greatest offense, could give us the chance to take a big lead in this game if all things go well.
Well, and then we had, you look at Greenlaw, you look at Warner, same names, but the players are much better than they were 4 years ago. Right? Like, these guys have grown tremendously in that amount of time. 4 years is a lifetime in the NFL. So you're right. I mean, the players, Bosa was a rookie that year as well. So when you look at the players, they should be better. Are they coached better? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. But Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be confident. Confident. I think next week we'll probably give predictions. Not going to necessarily do it this week. I got to kind of feel the game, see who's in for sure, who's out, what have you. But I feel good about it. I think the 49ers definitely can win this game, and I'll probably pick them to do so. I haven't picked against them all season long, so I doubt I'm going to start now. But Matthew Sanders says, Reed, I have an army. Shanny, I have a McCaffrey. Nice. All right, Sunil, thank you so much, man, for joining me as always. Appreciate you. Much love. Everybody in the chat, go over. I'm about to go live now. NFC West roundtable. Type that into YouTube. NFC West roundtable. About to go live with 3 guys that cover the other NFC West teams. Looking forward to gloating to them that the 49ers, not their team, are going to the Super Bowl. We'll talk soon. Peace.